Hi, Math 131. We're on question number 11 in exam 2. Solve the problem. Assume the garden is rectangular. This doesn't have a garden. I have to tell you, no, don't even assume that. And round your answers to whole numbers. Okay, let x equal the amount of 62% solution. Let y equal the amount of 77% solution. A chemist needs 180 milliliters of a 72% solution, but he only has 62% and 77% solutions available. Find how many milliliters of each that should be mixed to get the desired solution. So we know this formula. The quantity of the main ingredient, Q, is equal to the percentage expressed in decimals times the amount of the solution you're working with. So we have a table. We have our 62% solution and our 77% solutions. Those are the ones that are available. And we want to combine them to get a 72% solution. We want to know how much. X is the amount of the 62% solution we'll be using, and Y is the amount of the 77% solution. So under percentage, in decimal form, we're going to list on the first row, 62% is 0.62. On the second row, 77% is 0.77. In the last row, 72% is 0.72. Times the amount that we're using. Well, we're going to use X, whatever that is, for the first one. We're going to use Y amount for the second one. And 180 is how much he wants to get of the 72% solution. So when you multiply each of these rows together, you'll get the quantity Q. So on the first row, it's 0.62X. On the second row, it's 0.77 times Y. On the third row, we actually do the multiplication. 0.72 times 180 gives us the quantity of the main ingredient in the amount that the chemist is going to make. It's 129.6 milliliters. Now we're going to take the equation from the first column, 0.62x plus 0.77y equals 129.6. We're going to call that equation A, because the quantities are going to add together of the main ingredient to give us the quantity of the main ingredient in the entire solution at the end. And then we're going to take the column in the back and use that for equation B. That's the amount of the solution we're using. We're using X amount of the first portion plus Y amount of the second portion to get a total of 180 milliliters. So we have a system of two equations. Now let's get rid of the decimals in equation A by moving the decimal 2 places to the right. In other words, we're multiplying both sides of equation A by 100. And it gives us 62x plus 77y equals 12960. Now we're going to use solving the system of equation. We're going to take the easiest equation, B, and we're going to solve it for one of the variables. We'll solve it for x by moving y to the other side. All right, so that equation B changes to x equals 180 minus y. Now we're going to substitute that result into equation A. Now equation A is 62 parentheses, 62 times x, but leave that empty, plus 77y equals 12960. Just replace this x with the result we got here for x, 180 minus y. Now you have an equation that only has y, so you can solve for y. First, we'll distribute multiplication by 62 to get rid of the parenthesis, and that gives us this result. Now we're going to isolate the y terms on one side and divide both sides by the coefficient 15, and that gives us 15 times y equals 1800. Now to get y alone, we divide both sides by 15 and we get y equals 120. So we've got the y answer. Now we just need the x. Plug that y equals 120 back into x equals 180 minus y. So it's 180 minus 120. That gives us x equals 60. Therefore, the chemist must use x equals 60 milliliters of the 62% solution and y equals 120 milliliters of the 77% solution. Number 12. Jared is having a problem with rabbits getting into his veggie garden, so he decides to fence it in. The length of the garden is 5 feet more than 6 times the width. He needs 108 feet of fencing to do the job. Find the length and the width and assume a rectangular garden. So we're given L, length is 5 more than 6 times the width. So here we say length equals 6W plus 5. And the amount of fencing he's going to use to go around this rectangle is 108. So the perimeter around is 108. We want to find L and W. Step 1, we're going to use a perimeter 108 in the formula. Perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Replace P with 108. You get 108 equals 2L plus 2W. Now, step 2, simplify that. We'll divide both sides by 2, and we get 54 equals L plus W. Now we're going to substitute L equals 6W plus 5. Do you remember that? That was up here in the beginning. We were given L equals 6W plus 5. We're going to plug that into that 54 equals L plus W. So we get 54 equals 6W plus 5 plus W. Look at that. All we have are W's in here. So let's solve for W. 54 equals 7W plus 5. Back up at the top. Solve for W, divide both sides by 7, we get W equals 7. Okay, we're halfway there. Now let's get the L. We're going to substitute our W equals 7 into L equals 6W plus 5 to find L. So plug that 7 in here, simplify, we get L equals 47. Conclusion, the length is 47 feet and the width must be 7 feet. Number 13, use synthetic division to divide x squared plus 12x plus 33 over x plus 5. Well, for synthetic division, we divide by this number c. That c is in the denominator x minus c, so we're going to rewrite x plus 5 in the denominator as x minus a minus 5. That makes it clear that our c is a negative 5. That's why we have negative 5. And the numbers underneath the division are the coefficients of the function on the top. So it's 1 times x squared, and then plus 12 times x, and then plus 33. That's where those numbers come from. They're coefficients of the numerator on top of the fraction. First, you bring down the first number, multiply negative 5 times 1 is negative 5, add, you get 7. Multiply negative 5 times 7, you get negative 35, add, you're always adding, you get negative 2. Negative 2 is your remainder. So our final answer involves this coefficient, and the remainder, and the answer will be 1 degree lower than the numerator. The numerator had a second power, so we're starting with the first power, 1 times x to the first power, and then positive 7 times x to the, it's a constant because there's no more x's after x to the first power. And then the negative 2 is minus 2 over the denominator x plus 5. Or you could have written this as x plus 7 plus a negative 2 over x plus 5. All right, let's go on to number 14. Factor the sum or difference of two cubes. We have 8x cubed plus 1. We can rewrite that as 2x in parentheses cube plus 1 cube. So it's a sum of two cubes. We'll be using this formula. Applying that formula, a plus b is 2x plus 1, and then we go a squared, which gives us a 4x squared, minus a times b, which gives us minus 2 times x, plus the b squared, b is 1, so it's plus 1. So we've got our answer, 2x plus 1 in parentheses times 4x squared minus 2x plus 1. Number 15, factor the polynomial completely. Well, it's a 4th degree polynomial, so let's try substitution. Let the middle variable, which is x squared, equal u. Then square that, you get x squared squared, which is x to the 4th, and that's the first variable. So we're ready for our substitution. Our original 15x squared plus 15x to the 4th plus 16x squared plus 4 is replaced with 15u squared plus 16u plus 4. Now we cannot factor this, so we'll use the quadratic formula. A is 15, B is 16, and C is 4. And we plug that into, well, actually we didn't have to use the quadratic formula. We were able to come up with a way of factoring it, and then we just had our answer as 3u plus 2 times 5u plus 2, and then we had to go back to the definition of the x's. We replaced u's with x squared for our final answer, 3x squared plus 2 times 5x squared plus 2.